Hey, welcome here to Live from Poppas at Poppas Hot Dogs in Mooresville, North Carolina, home of the $5 lunch. We're here today with a real special guest here today, one of the legends of NASCAR, our good friend Dave Marcis. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing really good, Steve. I just had 2 Poppas hot dogs and my favorite drink, Pepsi. I'm doing great.
You're awesome, Dave. So how are you doing? You're doing something different nowadays. You've got your own hot rod business, right?
Well, we got what we call Street Rods by Dave Marcis, and our main thing is that we use a Winston Cup NASCAR type chassis and suspension, and we custom build the frames to fit like any body that you would want to make into a hot rod. You know, if you had a 50 Chevy or a 55 Chevy or whatever it may be, we custom build a frame to that, and adapt the NASCAR suspension to the front and rear, the truck rear end housing, the truck trailing arms, everything.
So basically, you're going to have a hot-looking hot rod, but it's going to handle like a race car with the chassis and the suspension. In other words, they're going to handle much better on the road than some of the older stuff that people are building, correct?
That, definitely. It has the upper and lower control arms on it, the spindles, the same brake package, sway bar, steering box, the whole complete package. Yeah.
Wow. You do everything, paint and body and everything up there?
Yeah, we do the whole works. We farm out some of the paint work and the upholstery.
Okay.
And so that's going to be one of the best handling and definitely the safest hot rods on the road. I mean, there's a couple different racetrack. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do anything you want on suspension. You can change the shocks. We got the Penske shock package on it. You can revalve those. You can change the roll centers, the Ackerman, the bump steer, and anything you want.
And that's called Street Rods by Dave Marcis,
Street Rods
right?
by Dave Marcis.
And you have your own website by the same name.
Yes, we do.
Cool. Very cool.
So like if I wanted to drive it up to Michigan, I could change the rear end real quick because it's got you just change the pig and then if I want to drag race it, change it out. I mean, it sounds like you got ultimate customizability with that.
Yeah, it has the Ford 9-inch in it, so you can change just any gear ratio that the Cup guys change.
Oh, that's neat.
Just drive her in the garage and change the rear gear.
How neat. That's awesome.
Now, remember the IROC series? You did that 3 years, didn't you?
30 years.
30 years. I'm sorry, 30 years. The IROC series. Yeah.
Now you were one of the official test drivers for that, right? You kept all the cars.
I actually was hired by Mark Donahue when Mark was involved in it, and that's when I started, and I worked and helped set up the cars and did all the testing and stuff for 30 years.
Wow.
No, were you doing the IROC stuff when you were racing Cup and
yes,
Grand National at the time?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you were staying pretty busy back then.
Yeah. Yeah, staying very busy.
So I guess you're going turkey shooting this week coming up, right?
Well, we're going to turkey hunt in Virginia next week. Yep.
That'll be pretty neat.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We go by Surrey, Virginia.
Turkey season starts in April?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it'll open up here in North Carolina the 11th, I think.
I always thought that hunting was everything opened up in the fall.
No, not turkey season.
They got spring stuff. Yeah,
okay.
Birds
Yeah,
in the
turkey
spring,
season already is open in Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, Georgia. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Realtree's been a sponsor of yours for quite some time, right?
Yeah, yes, they have. Yeah.
Okay, and you have a pretty good relationship with them. I guess that's where the hunting comes in. You guys.
That's where the hunting comes in, and it basically was through Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt Sr. Was my connection with Bill Jordan from Realtree, and Richard was the one that told Bill, if you want to get involved in the sport, get involved with Dave Marcis. And so Bill sponsored my car for many years.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I remember seeing on the track many times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, when was the last year that you raced full time?
2001.
Okay.
I retired after the Daytona 500 in 2002.
Great.
Which was actually my 33rd Daytona 500. I did have 32 Daytona 500s consecutive. Wow. I missed the show in 2000 and 201. I made the show in 202.
Wow. Wow. Now, when you started, it was Grand National, correct? And then you went through the whole Winston Cup. And
yes. It was Grand National, then we went to Winston Cup in 71, I believe. Yeah. And then it was Winston Cup throughout my whole career.
Right. Gotcha. Now we're not sure by the next week. it keeps changing depending on who's got the telephone company going. So, and what a lot of people don't probably realize is that you were in the top 10 many times. I mean, in the points. I mean, you were, I guess, where did you go to the banquets in then? Was it in Daytona Beach back in those days?
Back in those days, our banquet was in Daytona Beach.
Right.
And, you know, one of the reasons Bill France Sr. had it that way, that's when you actually got paid your point money.
Right.
So, you know, he had it set up to where you could get an advancement on what you won last year, but you really couldn't get your final check till February at the banquet. So he always made sure that you had money to get going the next season, and you got it in Daytona, which, you know, in those days, money wasn't what it is today, and I mean, it was tight, but that was his plan, and it always worked very well. He ran a pretty sharp business.
No. Then they had it in New York for the longest time,
right,
I guess.
Then it moved to New York.
But then New York says, oh, they congest the traffic with the ride around and stuff. They really don't want them, I guess. But now it's going to be in Vegas, they're saying.
Oh, I have not heard that.
Oh, yeah, that's the
just
news.
announced
Last
that this week.
Yeah, this
So
week,
it will not be in New York next year?
No, it's going to be in Vegas this year, one of the casinos,
I
most
didn't know
likely.
that.
They're working on a deal right now.
Yeah.
I've been too busy with other things.
What I think is that all the money that they win, they better just give them a check that goes to their bank here, because they're probably going to try. If they give them cash, they'll be spending it in Vegas. So and when Jimmy gets his check this year, it's going to be big.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, let's not do that yet.
I don't know. After yesterday, it's the Jeff and Jimmy show again.
Yeah. So, Mr. Marcis, what do you think about the car of tomorrow being from the school of you were there when they did bump stops on the older car. You were there when they were doing some of the stuff they're doing now, and they weren't getting this 5 inches of travel in the front. They were getting 1.5 inches, 2 inches. What do you think of the car of tomorrow? Is it a throwback to like an 80s car, or is it a...
I haven't driven one or anything in running competition, so you know it's hard to evaluate it, but and it seems as though they're getting it better now this year. I think the race has been a little better, a little closer. But up until this point, no one seems to be that happy with them. They have troubles getting them handling the way they want them, get them to run good in a pack and in a group. And they look like they're a handful. They look like they're difficult. I think the guys work awful hard to get out of them what they're getting out of them.
But isn't that kind of the way the Grand National cars were when they were bias ply and you were running more of a stock frame? I mean,
well, yes, to a point it was. Yeah, I mean, we slipped and slid around a lot more, and also on those tires and on those chassis. And we didn't have the spoilers, we didn't have the downforce, but you know, we were in that learning curve, and everybody was trying different things, and you could do more things to your car. The rules weren't as tight.
Right.
So when somebody found something that gave the car more downforce, like the front spoilers and things that we had, made the cars turn better, then next week the other guys would have them, and then pretty soon NASCAR would have to legislate on it and come up with a rule.
Yeah.
And you know, pin us down to I mean, we'd have had air dams that wide across the front, so they pinned us down, I think, to the width of the frame rails or something like that. And so each thing would get out of hand, and then they would come up with some standard rules. But it was a learning process, but it put on a good show, and it was competitive.
I look back on those tapes and I see the guys, and it looks a lot like the car of tomorrow, where it rotates a lot more and it's not underneath you. It seemed like they got to a point there from 98 to 2005 where the Cup cars were so in the racetrack that you almost never saw them sideways. They were just stuck to the track, and it almost didn't take as much to drive them as it did back with the bias plies or now with the car of tomorrow.
Well, when Goodyear came with the radial tire, that changed the sport a lot. I mean, the radial tire really has more adhesion and it rolls freer. It was a big improvement, a big change from the bias ply tire. It doesn't change its stagger size, it remains the same. So more emphasis have to really be put into the car in practice during the week to get it working, because it doesn't change that much during a race. Whereas with the old bias ply tires, we could grow them tires 1.5 inches, 2 inches with air pressures and change the way the car drove, the stagger it had, the way it rolled through the corners and all.